Good morning. We are in the garden. My cucumbers, wow, right? They have grown. They're taking over. They're trying to get to the neighbor's house. So these are Boston picklers, and today, guess what? We're making pickles. So I'm gonna look for some that are ready. This looks like one right here. Might be a little bit small, but you know what? You want to pick these while they are still a little smaller so that they're crisp. That's perfect for pickles. You don't want them to get too big. So I'm gonna look here. I see there's one. Perfect. There's another one. All right, drop that in. And when let's see. Here's another one. When I'm done picking these, I'm going to meet you inside, show you all the ones that I've collected over the last about week, and we're going to make some pickles. I'm going to show you how to make them crisp. We're going to do bread and butter, and then stick around to the end because I've got some tips for you. Welcome back to the new channel title. We used to be Cooking Healthy Urban Style. So if you're a subscriber, don't be alarmed. We have changed the name to Urban Homestead Kitchen, cooking, gardening, and preserving, which fit our channel much better. It's a little bit better tuned to what we do here. If you're new to the channel, thank you for coming. I'm excited to see you and have you here. Each week, Wednesday at 3 p.m., a new video is posted. And just as the title says, we're going to be cooking some things. We're going to cook and make some dishes with some of the things that we've canned and preserved. And of course, it's about gardening and cooking and canning things from the garden. So today is bread and butter pickles. Be sure and stay till the end for some helpful tips and tricks and additional information. Be sure to subscribe and watch the entire video. That really helps us out. So to begin with, this recipe actually calls for 4 pounds of sliced cucumbers, which I have my cucumbers here. And as you saw from my garden, these are Boston picklers. They're the best cucumbers to make pickles out of. It also calls for, it says 8 small onions. I have 2 very large onions. That's all I had, but that's okay because I actually like more pickle and a little less onion in my bread and butter pickles. Onions are great in there, but really to me, it's all about the pickles. We're also going to do a 1/2 cup of pickling or canning salt that you see here. It's very important to get canning or pickling salt. It doesn't have iodine in it, and it's specially formulated for canning. We're also going to need some sugar. I have some white sugar here. I know, white sugar, but that's what gives it that sweet taste. And it's going to be 5 cups of sugar, 4 cups of white vinegar, and I have my pickling vinegar here. That's 5%. It's very important when you're canning or pickling anything that you get the 5% vinegar. And just to play it safe, pickling vinegar, you know that you're good to go. We're also going to have 2 tablespoons of mustard seeds, 2 tablespoons of celery seed, 1.5 teaspoons of ground turmeric, and 1/2 teaspoon of cloves. It says ground cloves. I kind of like to put the whole cloves in there. To me, cloves is a very strong flavor. And once you can all of this, and we're going to water bath can it only takes about 15 minutes. I have my water bath canner behind me. You want them to sit for probably 3 to 4 months, really is the best, or at least 6 to 8 weeks for the pickles to absorb all that wonderful flavor. Now, when we first pick these, we're going to wash them. They're going to have little kind of spiky black things on them. You're going to rub them off. Very key thing to do, this flour here on the end, you really want to make sure that you cut that off and discard it. Otherwise, if you don't cut enough of that, there's enzymes in the end of here, and that's going to make your pickles bitter. So, without boring you any further, what I'm going to do is wash and slice these cucumbers, and I'll come back when I've got that done. I have washed and cut off the ends of my Boston picklers, scraped off any little black, they're almost like little seeds, then every little bump's gonna have like a little black bead or seed on it. You wanna eliminate those. I have them all ready to go, ready to slice. I have my onions, I'll be slicing those also. This is the ideal, perfect thickness for your pickles. Any thinner, they're gonna be mushy. Any thicker is just too thick. So you could use a knife and slice them up with a knife. I have a mandolin. I really like using this. To me, this just makes it the perfect thickness. Easy to go. As it gets down shorter, I'll use the handle. Once I have all of these sliced up, they're gonna go back into my strainer, which is over a bowl, along with the sliced onions. I'm going to add salt, stir that up really well. Then I'm gonna put ice on top of that. Crushed ice is preferable. I do a mixture of crushed and cubed, and they're gonna go in the refrigerator for probably about 3 to 4 hours. And that's gonna take some of that extra moisture out of your pickles. This way they'll stay nice and firm when you are ready to eat them. So I'm gonna slice these all up, and I'll see you back once that's done. All right, it is time to add our onions to our beautiful bowl of sliced cucumbers. And what I've done is cut off the ends. Remember, these can be saved to make vegetable broth or put into your composter. I've cut the onion in half. I'm going to take off the skin, and this very dry part of skin, that can be saved also. Once it's dried, you can grind that up and make an onion powder. Right, now the way that I'm going to slice these to put them in with those pickles is very simple. I'm going to do them about the same thickness as I did the cucumbers, so you can see, and they're just going to be large pieces like this that'll get mixed in. I am back. I have sliced the onions. As you can see, that's quite a lot. That's the reason. It calls for 8 small onions. I did 2 large onions, or I would do 4 small onions. If you want to do 8, that's fine. What I'm going to do now is take a half a cup of this canning and pickling salt, put it in here, mix it up really, really well. So be very careful not to do more than the half cup. This, by the way, is going to fill 7-pint jars, which is exactly what my canner holds. But if you use more than this salt, and I know this salt is to drain the excess water out of these cucumbers and onions, but if you use too much salt or not enough salt, your pickles are not going to taste right, because these cucumbers and onions are going to absorb some of this salt. So you want to make sure it's the correct ratio. There's my half a cup. Now I'm just going to mix this all up so that it's coated really well. Then it's going into my strainer, ice on top. Because I left the onions on top before I started mixing this up, it's going to really help me know if I've coated everything when the onions are evenly distributed with all the cucumber slices. Oops. And as you can see, this is a nice ratio of onion to cucumber. Now this is going into my strainer. I have to get a bigger one or a second one. Okay. Yeah. I guess it takes up more volume once they're sliced. I'll be back. Okay. So, since they didn't all fit into that metal strainer, which I find kind of funny, as much as I hate plastic, I'm glad that I never got rid of this. This is a plastic strainer. This is interesting. You can see already the liquid that's coming out of these and how different they look. So it's important that your strainer does not touch the bottom of the bowl. Now I have my ice. This is a mixture of cubed and crushed, just because. You can do either one. So I'm going to put that on top. Let's see if I can get all this on there again. Not another debacle. Okay, close enough. So now that's covered with ice. This is going to go in my refrigerator for 3 to 4 hours. When they're ready to come out, I will be back and I'm going to show you how to make the brine and how to jar these up and process them and what seasonings I'm putting into that brine. Pretty exciting. I love bread and butter pickles. Who doesn't, right? All right, see you back in 3 to 4 hours. I'm back. My cucumbers and onions with the ice on them have been in the refrigerator for 3 hours. A lot of the ice has melted, and there's quite a bit of liquid that came from the pickles, from the cucumbers, if you can see that. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to drain these. I'm going to rinse them, drain them, rinse them again. Then I'm going to make my brine, add my cucumbers to that brine, and we're going to jar them up. We're going to make our brine. To make the brine, this is going to take 5 cups of sugar, 4 cups of vinegar, and remember this is the 5% pickling vinegar, 2 tablespoons mustard seeds. I love these in the pickles. They turn kind of soft, very flavorful. 2 tablespoons mustard seeds, 2 teaspoons of celery seed, and 1½ teaspoon of turmeric powder. We're going to bring this to a boil. Once this is at a full boil and the sugar is all dissolved, we're going to add our pickle and onions that we have rinsed and drained, bring it back to a boil, and then we're ready to can them up. Right now I have my water bath canner here. You see the handles because my jars are in there because I'm putting hot liquid and hot ingredients. They need to go into a hot jar into the hot water bath canner. So this is heating up. This will be a rolling boil very soon, and I'll take my hot jars out. And as soon as this comes to a rolling boil, I'll put the cucumber and onion mixture in here, and then I'll bring it back to a boil, remove it from the heat, and I'll see you again when I start putting them in my jars. Okay, we're ready. I've got hot jars. And I'm going to start to fill these. I'm going to scooch these over close to the edge so I don't make a big mess. Going to toss in each one about this many cloves, if you can see that. Just going to drop that into each jar. Start ladling it in. I do want to try and get an even amount of ingredient to liquid. It can be a little tricky. You have to be careful you don't get all ingredient or all liquid. You want to disperse that evenly. And I made a mess. Okay, I'll be back once these are all filled. So I made a little bit of a mess anyway. But this is why I have my canning towels. Please don't use good towels. Turmeric will really stain things. So I have these filled up. We're going to do 1/4 inch headspace. I have just enough of this brine left over to touch these up to the 1/4 inch, a little bit if I need. I'm going to debubble. It doesn't take a lot to debubble these because there is a lot of liquid. but there's a lot of sugar in this, so these rims are going to be very sticky. I have to very thoroughly clean those with the vinegar, wipe the rims really well before I put my lids on, and then they're going to go into the water bath canner. You know, recipe says 10 minutes. I always like to err on the side of caution. I'm going to do 15, and after 15 minutes I let them sit. I turn the heat off. It's going to be at a rolling boil, by the way, for 15 minutes. And then I turn the heat off and I let the jar just kind of sit there as the rolling boil comes down a little bit. And then I lift them out. So maybe another 5 minutes just sitting in there. And to me, that I've noticed that helps ensure a good seal. Now, for some reason, some of these don't seal. I could reprocess it, but I want to keep my pickles crunchy, so they'll probably just go in the refrigerator, and I'll let them sit in the refrigerator for a week or so, and then we'll eat those. They're just so delicious. I can't make enough of these. It's a good thing my cucumber plant is going to produce all summer long, because I plan on making a lot of bread and butter pickles. And remember, stick with me to the end. I've got this little tidbit of information and interesting, like, I always wondered about that. So, and again, don't forget to subscribe. I'm going to go over these one more time just to be sure before I put my lids on. So just bear with me. If you have questions or suggestions, please by all means leave it in the comments for me. I do respond to questions and always looking for comments and helpful tips. We're on this journey together. I hope that you make these pickles, bread and butter pickles. And again, at the end, I'm going to tell you quickly how to do dill pickles. Now, I have examined all my lids again to make sure that they're not bent, that all the rubber seals are fine. No need to put these into hot water ahead of time. The new lids don't require that. I know it used to be that they said to boil your lids, get them hot before you put them on there. There's no need for that anymore. And my rims are clean, and I'm doing what's called fingertip tight. That means I'm pushing, I'm turning, and when it does this, without holding and cranking it down, when it does that, that's fingertip tight. So bear with me while I put these on. I'm going to put them in the canner, and I'll come back after 15 minutes, and they're all done, and we're going to listen for that pinging sound. And remember, after 24 hours, we let them sit for 24 hours before we check the seal on them. We're going to wash them really well because they may get sticky. There is a lot of sugar in that brine. After 24 hours, we wash them, check the seals, and they're good to go. You really don't want to open these up and eat them for 6 to 8 weeks minimum. If you can wait 2 to 3 months, that's really the best, because these pickles are going to absorb all the sugar, the vinegar, the spices that are in there, particularly the cloves. All right, I'm going to drop this into my water bath canner. It's at a rolling boil. We'll time it at 15 minutes. I'll see you back. I'm back. So these have water bath for 15 minutes. I did have the water several inches above each jar. Rolling boil for 15 minutes. Let it sit for about 5 minutes while I turned it off and the rolling boil slowed down to a halt. I'm going to take these out, and we're going to listen for that ping. That ping is like the best sound in the world. When you hear that bink, bink, that means they've sealed. Oftentimes it happens as I'm taking them out. But since these were only for 15 minutes, that's probably not going to... Oh, nope, there was one. I was wrong. I heard the ping. See, the cloves have floated up and are dispersed evenly, which is nice. So there they are. And here is my... I promise you wait till the end, and I would tell you a little kind of secret, I always wondered, why are they called bread and butter pickles? And the reason is that people used to make these pickles and they would trade them for bread with their neighbors. Isn't that interesting? Now, if you want to make garlic dills, I'm going to post a quick recipe at the end of this video, so don't go away. It's a very similar process. You just cut the pickles differently, and you put a little bit different stuff inside, and that recipe's coming up. Thank you everyone for joining me in my kitchen and for Urban Homestead Kitchen. Please subscribe and watch for the recipe, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.